Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Eumidian Hatchery is back into my deck today and we are playing a sweet Hogaak deck. This is a deck I've played against on the channel that are really sweet and it's actually been putting up a few 5-0s. It is a Smallpox build and it's putting up 5-0s, so sign me right up. So what this deck is trying to do is grind your opponent's resources into oblivion. So we've got Wasteland and Ghost Quarters, so we can eradicate all of our opponent's lands because we have these Life from the Loam to keep bringing them back. Our win conditions, we have this Urza Saga, which we can keep recurring with the Life from the Loam, making a bunch of guys. We've seen this in many decks before. We have the Eumidian Hatchery, which is going to produce a bunch of 1/1 creatures that we can utilise in several ways that I'll discuss in a minute. But just generally beating down with them is pretty nice. And this dies to our own Smallpox and gives us value. Alternatively, we can Ghost Quarter it and then we end up getting a bunch of creatures and then we can also get a land out of our deck, which is quite nice too. Sometimes we're going to be Wastelanding it as well. Also got Hogaak. Now, all the little 1/1s from Eumidian Hatchery give us the ability to cast this Hogaak. We also have Orcish Bowmasters, which, aside from being just a good card, allows us to cast Hogaak because it gives us 2 bodies to cast the Convoke on it. We've got ourselves a Grist, which is just a nice piece that can remove some problem permanents, like creatures and stuff and planeswalkers, as well as just producing 1/1 bodies, which help us with Grist. It also mills us into our Loams, our Hogaaks, and things to get back with Loam. Removal-wise, we've got a handful of Fatal Push to go alongside this Grist. We've got a Witherbloom Command, which can kind of do an impression of a Life from the Loam. This card has been pretty good, and when I've been playing in decks that look a little bit like this. We've got some Thoughtseizes to pick away at our opponent's hand alongside this Smallpox. And then we've got a little Urza Saga package of Nihil Spellbomb and Currency Converter. The Mox Diamonds here are just a kind of staple in these sorts of decks. It allows us to power stuff out ahead of curve and really start restricting our opponent's resources. Mana base wise, the only real silver bullet lands we haven't touched on yet is the Underground Mortuary, which is just a standard thing in any deck that has the time to go and get Surveil land. And then we have 2 Boseijus, which gives us a lot of ability to hit certain permanents our opponents may have. The one thing that kind of might seem a little bit missing to me here is the Shadowspear, because we're losing a lot of life between the Hatchery, the Smallpox, the Thoughtseizes, stuff like that. However, it's in the sideboard, so it is still in the 75, so that does make some sense. Also in the sideboard, we've got some Graveyard Hate in the form of Endurance and Leyline. We've got Force of Vigor to block some annoying artifacts and enchantments. Pick Your Poison is kind of very efficient and flexible, but doesn't always do exactly what you want. So this is like a generically good card, but doesn't always answer specific problems. So we're going to see how that plays out today, because if your opponent's an artifact deck, then you're never going to get the artifact deck you want to kill. But if they're like a tempo deck that's just playing 1 artifact, or like 1 enchantment, then you can obviously nail it here. Dampening Sphere, this is going to slow down some of the Storm decks and also the big mana decks like the Mystic Forge and Cloud Post of the World. Pithing Needle and Haywire Mite and a Grafdigger's Cage, just some more Urza Saga targets. But yeah, I've been excited to get this on the channel. When this card finally came to Magic Online, I immediately played a Smallpox deck with this, but this build obviously looks a lot more refined and better than what we were doing then. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. I know a lot of people out there enjoy Smallpox content, so like, subscribe so you don't miss any of my Smallpox content, because I do put it out relatively regularly. And let's grind people into the dirt.
Have you got magic cards you don't want taking up space in your home, or do you just need some extra spending money? Well, my lovely sponsors 3for1 Trading are buying all collections, big and small. They are one of Europe's biggest traders and have a transparent process to sell them cards and make sure you're getting a good deal. Click the link in the description of this video to get an offer on your cards today.
We don't really have the sort of Smallpox and the Loam that our deck is kind of built around. However, Urza Saga is a pretty phenomenal Magic the Gathering card. I will keep this one, and we'll see what our opponent does, but we're probably going to want to lead off on this Nihil Spellbomb, because when you have this, when it's relevant, you need to play it turn 1. Alright, blue-black. This certainly feels like a matchup where it may be relevant. So we have some options. We could try and Wasteland first, because we know they can't Entomb Reanimate on just 1 mana. So we could try and Wasteland first and see if that maybe stops them from being able to play the game. And it also means that it's not getting days at all. Our opponent's spending a long time in this Ponder. Now, they could just be a bunch of decks. You know, there's some Storm decks that run this. You've got Doomsday, Tempo, and obviously the Blue-Black Reanimator. So we're going to have to wait and see how this sort of plays out. Depending on what we draw, it might also change what we want to do. I think Wastelanding is just the generically best thing we can do here, because we're not in danger of getting Entomb Reanimated next turn because they've let off on the Ponder. And it also means that if they're another deck that just needs a critical massive mana, like a Storm combo deck, we can hit this. So whether they're like Ad Nauseam Tendrils or whatever, we can take this out. And if they're a tempo deck, it just sets them back a little bit. And what we want to do is slowly whittle down our opponent's resources with this deck anyway. So I'm leaning towards the Wasteland here, because there's no pressure on board. Okay, they shuffled on that Ponder after a while. Like, what we actually play this turn is kind of a big deal. Like, if they are a Storm deck, maybe we do want to get, like, the Nihil Spellbomb down so we can stop some of the more combo-y lines where they go through the graveyard using Guy as well. We've got here a Boseiju. I think we're just going to Wasteland our opponent here. This also means they don't necessarily know what they're doing with their cantrips right now. And maybe we just cheese this game out from it. But I think this is just, considering how many lands we have as well, just utilising our Wasteland that way, resetting the game. Maybe that ruins our opponent's entire hand. But the downside for us is also very low. Okay, so they have a basic swamp. So now we can play this Nihil Spellbomb out without being dazed. I'm going to leave this Verdant Catacombs in hand because I want to keep the ability to get Revolt on this Fatal Push. So we're going to play this using our Forest because we want to crank as much value out of these Sagas as we can because that's kind of what our hand does. If our opponent is playing some sort of tempo deck, then triple Saga is going to be really hard for them to overcome. It's just lots of really hard to interact with bodies. Now, if they're like some sort of main deck, dress down sort of deck, they can take out some of them, but we're just going to keep them coming. So next turn we play out the Saga unless we have to Fatal Push something. It is a little bit awkward that we're having to save the Revolt for this because it means we won't be able to activate the Spellbomb and draw a card. But we're not really about doing that unless it's a thing that stops us from effectively losing the game. Okay, so a bug. So we could be Bug Beans. So that's going to be another matchup where having a bunch of Urza Saga is going to be pretty strong. It's just a difficult thing for them to interact with when they're trying to play a slow game. Now, this could also still be some sort of ad nauseum combo. They tend to be a little bit slower than other Storm decks and generally coalesce around sort of the bug colours. So they get things like Veil of Summer and stuff. Okay, Mox. Was I correct on my potential reads here? Beseech the Mirror. Look at that. Okay, Dark Ritual. I don't feel good. Like, our opponent's probably done the maths and they know if they can win the game or not. Another Ritual here. So they're up to 6 mana. 1 card left in hand. It's an Infernal Tutor. So they go and get... What do they get here? Beseech the Mirror. Again. Sacrifice this Mox. Oh, they're just going straight for an ad nauseum. Sure, that makes sense. But they have 1 mana left over. So they're odds on here. But they have burned 2 Dark Rituals. Rain of Filth. That gets them 2 mana. So that's the starting mana they require. They got 14 life. They can keep going for a lot here. The Infernal Tutor kind of needs the Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay, so they have a Lion's Eye Diamond. So how much mana have they got though? 3, 4, 5, 6. That is enough to kill us. So they have lethal here. They don't need to keep drawing. But there's also no reason not to because they have a whole bunch of life left. And the highest hit they probably have in their deck is 4 mana. Okay, so they are Past in Flames, so we're getting a little bit more information. So this is deterministic. I'm not going to make our opponent click through it. Yeah, so they get 2 mana from sacrificing these lands, 3 mana from the Lotus Petal. They can cast the Infernal Tutor, crack the Lion's Eye Diamonds, and then they kill us. Alternatively, they Burning Wish and crack it. So either way, they have us covered. Alright, a Storm combo deck, not necessarily what we're great against here. We have seen some stuff that makes me want these Leylines, so they've got the Past in Flames. They might not have Guy as well, but it's possible. So I wouldn't mind having these. We're just going to have things that interact and hope that that can do enough for us. Haywire Mite. So basically, like, all of this stuff can interact with our opponent in various ways. So what are we getting rid of here? Smallpox is very good at deleting our opponent's resources. I don't particularly like the Grist here. We're not trying to sort of grind our opponent out necessarily. We're trying to suppress them and then finish them. Fatal Push is obviously pretty bad. Thoughtseize probably our best card in the matchup, I would say. Wasteland, if we can keep our opponent's resources down, it makes things more difficult for them. So that's a real plus. Currency Converter, we're probably not going to have time to be doing that. And we're going to replace it with things like Grafdigger's Cage to stop Past in Flames. I think that is better than the Haywire Mite just in general. So let's just pull these up here for a second and work out what we need to include. So the Damping Spheres are the best option we have. So we have 3 more slots if we keep this configuration. So what 3 slots would we want from these cards? The Force of Vigor can be interesting. If they missequence their artifact mana, like their Lion's Eye Diamond and stuff, we can sometimes hit them in a way that can ruin their whole plan. So I don't hate the Force of Vigor. We can also hit a Mox Chrome Mox with the imprint trigger on the stack to deny them mana, so there's definitely some options here. I don't mind the Endurance, it's just a generic card that can beat down whilst also messing with them a little bit. So this can blow up some of their non-creature spells, so we can take out any artifact mana they hang out to avoid the hand disruption. I don't think we want the full Leyline, because if we have a Leyline, what happens is our opponent doesn't combo into the graveyard, right? Whereas the Endurance might catch them out. I still think it's worth having the Grafdigger Cage as a tutorable target, but I just don't think we want Leylines for this. And this is probably good enough. Like, we can punish their Ponders and cantrips this way with the Bowmasters. Alright. We didn't see the Wishcore Talisman, so I'm not going to bring in the Pithing Needle. Like, we saw Burning Wish, Infernal Tutor, and Beseech the Mirror. I don't think they're going to have additional tutor objects beyond that, but they could do. So, what does this hand do? We can blow up, like, an artifact and stuff, but we really need, like, Hand Disruption and Disruptive... not Disruptive Flute, Damping Sphere. So I'm going to mulligan this one. Kind of similar but different, but we have no ability to disrupt them here. This is going to be a horrible matchup, I think, going forwards. Okay, we get to keep this one. It has some issues. So we're keeping this, because this gives us black mana for the Thoughtseize on turn 1. And 2 of these cards have got to go back. So the Witherbloom Commands are going to help us get more mana. So I think we're going to put back an Endurance and a Witherbloom Command. We can always try and cycle the Nihil Spellbomb when the time comes. Alright, our opponent's mulligan to 4. They are not an Echo Storm deck, they're an Ad Nauseam Storm deck, so this is a severe mulligan for our opponent. They can't just recoup the value immediately. Unless they are playing Echo and we just didn't see it, but that seems very unlikely given what we saw. Let's take a little peek at our opponent's hand. Brainstorm is clearly the best thing our opponent has going on here, so I'm going to take that. Let's pass the turn and leave these cards up here so we can keep a track of what they cast. If they play this Lotus Petal out to avoid hand disruption, we might be able to get a really sweet Witherbloom Command where we get back a land and blow up their Lotus Petal. And because this is target player, it means they can remove one of the targets by sacking the Lotus Petal. We still get the recoup on the land because they haven't removed all targets. So our spell will still resolve properly. Polluted Delta. And they're not playing out the Lotus Petal to dodge hand disruption, which is a choice. A Mox Diamond. Not quite the most usable thing we have in the world right now. But we can get it back soon, and it makes Smallpox kind of interesting because we won't lose anything if we find a Smallpox. Right. They left the card on top with their Undersea Sewers when they surveilled. So what next? Alright, they found a Brainstorm. Pretty good. So this information is kind of up in the air now. So they could be able to put an Ad Nauseam on the stack this turn, and that would probably beat us. But there is a chance they fail. So just like with the Echo decks, it's non-deterministic when you cast your big payoff spell. Like the Echo decks sometimes wheel into stuff that doesn't go anywhere. And the Ad Nauseam decks sometimes just can't draw enough cards that are relevant in the right order, and then they just die to Ad Nauseam if they have to keep going, or their life total is so low they lose. Alright, the Brainstorm is finished. No additional land to shuffle, so they are Brainstorm locked. A Force of Vigor. Not the most useful. We could crack the Spellbomb and draw a card, but I don't really want to do that right now. I think we'll do it in our opponent's turn. This sitting in play isn't actually that useful. Like, it might be able to stop some of our opponent's lines, but generally speaking, if this is in play, they're going to play around it, which their deck can do. And when we don't have any pressure, that is a real problem. So found a land, but it's not a fetch hand. So they're still drawing through their Brainstorm cards, so this information is relevant. A Dark Ritual has hit the stack. A Lotus Petal. Okay, we kind of have to hope that we can hit a Lion's Eye Diamond at the right time here. Right, Beseech the Mirror. Have they got like the... what's it called? Okay, they're just doing a little Empty the Warrens line. That's not so bad. So they have like, what, one mystery card? So we don't know if they've shuffled this away or they still have this. Right, so they've got some power here. So we really need this Witherbloom Command to do different things now. We need this to kill a creature and drain some life to buy us more time. So we'll draw a card here. A Ghost Quarter. Yeah, that works. We can put that into the Mox Diamond. There's a Saga, also pretty nice. So let's play this out. Discard the Ghost Quarter. Play out the Saga. We can start cranking out some boys soon. And then we're going to kill a creature and drain life, just to keep ourselves healthy. So kill a creature, drain some life. Black and green. Okay, so next turn we get a guy that can block one of these. So we take 6, then we take 5, and then we take 3. So 6, 5, and 3 is not 20. So our opponent's going to need some more help. I don't know if they still have this tutor or not. It's a strange looking goblin token to me. I always think of goblins being like the sort of more comedic looking, like Phil Foglio style art from back in the day. Okay, so that is the tutor. What are they going to reveal to us? Oh, sorry, that was their last card in hand. They didn't have to reveal anything. I see. Okay. I'll play this out. So we get a guy here. We get to block. So we took 6 that turn. So we took 7, then we take 6. Oh, my maths is shocking today, isn't it? But we only have the one option of how we approach this game. So we make a friend. They just got him to fetch like an Abrupt Decay and just kill our token. That's pretty good. If we take 6 this turn, we go to 7. We take 4 next turn and go to 3. And then we only take 2. So I think we are okay. Now, it doesn't take much for our opponent to just cast 1 Tendrils and kill us. Kind of want the Shadowspear here, but that's not really how we've sideboarded. Right, so we've got another friend. I don't know, a Grafdigger's Cage or a Mox Diamond. I think it's the Cage, just to make sure we don't get done by like some random bits and pieces. I will play this Verdant Catacombs out, but we are not going to crack this, because 1 point of life is very relevant when they have a bunch of just a bunch of 1/1s. I think our opponent will have this one eventually, because we're not applying the pressure. Okay, Abrupt Decay. So next turn they hit us for 5. I'm not sure why they didn't do that first. They could have forced through another point of damage that turn cycle. So they hit us for 5 this turn. How are we supposed to beat all of these things? Like, this is where Hatchery, if we'd have had Hatchery early on, could have been an interesting game plan. But they can just cast like a Tendrils at some point. Okay, they're just going to tutor up an Abrupt Decay, and they're just playing an aggro. I don't think we win from here. Yeah, this was always going to be a tricky matchup. Like, our deck is trying to go play like a long, grindy game, whittling our opponent's resources down. Our opponent's deck is one that doesn't necessarily play that many resources until it goes off, so it's kind of very hard to interact with. Okay, let's go to match number 2. Okay. Seems fine. I wouldn't mind having a little bit more to go with this Smallpox, ideally, but we shall see. Ponder. So we play out our basic swamp here. Okay, we got something to discard to the Smallpox. That's nice. We've got the Spellbomb. Alright, it resolved, so that kind of covers us if our opponent is doing Reanimator stuff. At least it covers us for a while. They can always play around it. Hedge Maze. So we could be looking at like Bug Beans. It could be Ad Nauseam again, and that would be very problematic for us. An Orcish Bowmasters, you say? Interesting. What do I want to do here? I think I want to have the option of playing Orcish Bowmasters, but I would also like to get this ticking up. So we could play this one out and just start grinding away the value. I think that's the play. So our opponent is more likely to be like a slower deck with like Ponder into Hedge Maze here. Brainstorm in response to us not being able to cast the Orcish Bowmasters is very smart here. If you wanted to cast that Brainstorm so badly, though, I think you'd just cast on your main phase. Because what if we play like the Forest here instead? Then you don't get to play around the Bowmasters. And then we just play this horrible standoff game. There is the Beanstalk. I will fire this in. We do this now because at least if they Force of Will, they don't get to draw the card off of the Beanstalk. If we wait for this the trigger to be on the stack for the draw. Right, we got a little bit of value there. And our opponent missed on land. That is an interesting one. Are we grinding value with a Saga, or is just getting a Grist into play better? Grist is an annoying permanent for our opponent to deal with, for sure. But I think we just need to grind as much value from the things we have as possible. So I think we're just going to start Saga gaming here. Like, it might be difficult to overcome the value of Beanstalk, But the Saga is going to apply more pressure than a Grist would at this moment in time, because we're going to start getting bodies and pressuring our opponent's life total while our opponent's missing land drops. Because at some point they're going to have enough mana to really start leveraging the beanstalks. A Wasteland. Okay, so we're going to lose this Saga. But we get a guy out of it. 4 power, that's not too shabby. So now... do you want a Swamp or a Bayou? If we get a Swamp, our opponent's going to struggle to interact with our lands. Like they are a Wasteland deck. Let's do some attacking. Let's cast a Grist. This makes Hogaak a lot easier to do stuff with soon as well. If we find a good window to crack this Spellbomb, we might... We're not super worried about a Murktide coming down because we can Smallpox out of the way and just lose a 1/1 token. We also have the Grist. Like, you can draw extra cards, but if they don't... They hopefully, this game is just going to die with a bunch of cards in hand. So they're at 10 already. We've got half of that ready to go, life total wise. Next turn we can add a Hogaak to the board. They don't really play sweepers. It's just lots of targeted removal because they're the bug version, because we haven't seen any other colours yet. A Murderous Cut. So they're going to draw some cards and they're going to Murderous Cut our 2/2. Alright, that's going to reduce our clock a little bit. So this Spellbomb being something that pumps our construct is pretty relevant. Eumidian Hatchery. Water card. Okay, so I'm going to activate this Grist, and then I'm going to cast this Hogaak. Right, that's a big friend. I'm going to play this Hatchery and just start ticking that up. So we have lethal on board. I'm trying to think. If I know a Spellbomb right now, we might draw a Thoughtseize. Is that where I want to be here? I think it's correct to do this. Okay, we drew a Wasteland. Not quite the Thoughtseize. I don't think we're Smallpoxing here. We can use this to take a blocker out. It's kind of interesting. We're like the resource denial deck, and our opponent is the have all the resource deck. A non-token creature. Well, there goes the Hogaak. So losing a point of damage does change the clock a little bit here. They don't have anything like endurance mana, so I think we're okay here. Orcish Bowmasters is obviously a card that our opponent has access to. So I think we play out this Wasteland and take them off of Orcish Bowmasters now. And we'll see if they flash it in now, and then we can Witherbloom Command it. Right, so there's the Bowmasters. I imagine this is just getting pointed at one of our little guys. Who do they get rid of here? The insect tokens are black, but this can grow, so yeah, it makes sense to hit the construct, I think. So these help us cast Hogaak in a way that the other ones don't. So we could mill some cards and kill a guy. We could drain life for 2. So if we mill 3 cards, 3, 4, 5. If we don't return a land, we will have enough to Smallpox, to Hogaak. We could Smallpox first. I don't hate Smallpoxing first here. Alright, we're getting a Force of Will, triggering some Beanstalks. That is an extra point of life our opponent is giving up, though. Okay, so now we will... I think we kill a creature and drain life and force damage. Is that correct? So if we kill a creature and drain life, that puts them to 4. We attack, they go to 3. And then we have this guy back for next turn. I guess we should mill this first so we have the most amount of information. Because what if we mill over something relevant here? We can get back a land. We can also get back a Hogaak. We could drain life and get back Hogaak. That seems pretty strong, doesn't it? Okay. Let's try this. So, target player, target opponent. I'll take back this Wasteland. Then I'll cast this Hogaak. And then we'll get rid of stuff that doesn't work with the Grist. Okay, am I trading this for one of these guys? Is our opponent okay with that trade? I think they probably are. But I'm also okay with that. If we can trade with an Orc army before it becomes a 2/2, that's pretty good for us. Yeah, okay, I'll take that trade. So I need to answer the Hogaak. And what cards they have to do it? Shoulder's Edict's gone. Murderous Cut is gone. They maybe only have one more like good answer for Hogaak. The trample here is obviously huge. Alright, the big boy getting it done. Bug Beans. I didn't see that much Bug Beans, to be honest. Pick your poison. This can blow up some beanstalks. That seems reasonable. We're trying to reduce our opponent's resources. Haywire Mite is also an insect, so if you mill it over with Grist, we get an additional token. But it's mainly, we're going to be using this to blow up some beanstalks, whilst also just being a thing that exists and is pretty reasonable. We like the Nihil Spellbomb, because they do use their graveyard, but not to the point where we want to be bringing in Leylines. I don't really want to bring in Force of Vigors. If they were the white build with the Leyline binding, sure, but that's not the case. I like the endurances here because they do a thing whilst wiping the graveyard. So this is 5 potential cards that we're looking to bring in. What here doesn't seem great. The Fatal Push on Orcish Bowmasters is not really what this game is going to be about. So we'll strip those out. We're going to kill Orcish Bowmasters using Orcish Bowmasters. So this gives us 2 more cuts to find. Is there any lands here that we are happy to cut? No. Okay. So I don't particularly like Mox Diamond into our opponent's Witherbloom commands. So we'll at least trim one of those. Maybe we trim both, honestly. Yeah, I think that's correct. Just because our opponent does have Witherbloom commands and that can really jam us up. Alright, we'll try this. This is an interesting hand. I think we should try it for science. Because this is very much what I want to do with my life. Like, we can play quite well on just black mana. This is a pitch cast thing if we need it. But we can, you know, just play a bunch of stuff. And we're on the draw. Yeah, we're going to keep this. Having lands that just give us free threats is really nice. I don't think we're immediately firing off a Smallpox on 2. I think we're just going to get the Haywire Mite in. Start pecking away with it. It's not really worth our opponent dealing with. But if they have an Orcish Bowmasters, then they can ping it down. But generally speaking, they're probably just going to let this ride for a little bit. And then we'll amass some more counters. You know, we'll play some Bowmasters, stuff like that. And then at some point we can Smallpox and just have a bunch of free friends. Like, we could even just go Saga gaming. Oh wow, they're Force of Willingness. Wowzers, trousers. Okay. That suggests to me they don't have an answer to a creature. And they really want to get the Beanstalk down this turn. You wastelanding me here? I don't think you want to wasteland me. Okay, so they have a Beanstalk in. So I think we're just going to be Hatchery maxing, as we like to call it. And I will do this now before our opponent untaps. Alright, so now that Force of Will I think would have been better served pointed at our Bowmasters, to be honest. Because like, this still cantrips and replaces itself, and then we lose a card to answer it. So we actually end up down on that exchange, because that's what this card does. I think this card should have been 1 mana, but not draw a card on enter. That would have been really interesting. Obviously this wasn't designed necessarily with Legacy in mind, so... Okay, we've got a Bayou. What are we doing here? If we play this, our opponent wastelands it with a trigger on the stack, and we don't get the mana. So I think this is... I think we attack, and then we can address the situation afterwards. Because we can't really cast the Endurance. I kind of want to bait this Wasteland out. If we play this, we can play Grist, though. They didn't have a counterspell last turn. Yeah, I think it's probably Grist, isn't it? It's just worth thinking about all the options we have here. I'm enjoying these hatcheries hurting us. Because we are making a big breeding ground for some spicy friends to come along. Sure, so they're cantripping here. So we can ping our Bowmasters. And the way this works is it puts a counter on and pings at the same time, so it doesn't die. But we can't ping them because they have protection from black and blue. So we just get the Grist roll in now. We've got a good amount of aggression going on here. And at some point we can just explode out with a bunch of hatcheries. But I have to imagine our opponent has some sort of like Toxic Deluge style card. Which is obviously very good against a horde of 1/1s. But we want to do this when we put our opponent in a position where it gets them good. Alright, so they're having to ponder into the Bowmasters. This is never where you want to be. But again, I say it often on this channel, this is why I like Bowmasters. Our opponent has the choice to ponder in this situation, right? It's not like a Hull Breacher where you just can't do it. Like, our opponent made that choice. It's probably the right choice, and it might end up winning the game, the fact they pondered into the Bowmasters. And I just think that's an interesting bit of design on this card, compared to things like Hull Breacher. Alright, is this going to be the Deluge? It's Barragoyf. Well, we have an answer for Barragoyf on board. We also have this Smallpox. Is our opponent trying to bait us into using this Smallpox? I don't know. Should we use the Grist? Let's save the Smallpox for a bit because we get more out of it in a minute. Okay, let's sacrifice this. Let's explode up this Barragoyf. Out you go. I will... Each opponent sacrifices an enchantment of their choice. Go away, Beanstalk. And then I'll play this out. If our opponent wastelands this... So at the moment, I don't really want a Smallpox until our opponent has finished with their wasteland. I would also like to sacrifice a insect token. But I think just using the value off of the Grist is more important right now. So our opponent will have answers that will deal with the Grist. So every little bit of value we get out of this is fine, whereas these cards are kind of going to be similar value whenever we use them, but we can maybe tick up and get these, like messing with our opponent. Is this going to be another Barragoyf? Rakshas's Bargain. I will be tapping these hatcheries at end turn. This is the gamer I am now. Right, they're going after our Saga. That is not a surprise. And they're scooping it up. Alright, that felt really good, to be honest. Our opponent had double Beanstalk and we beat them in game 1. They had Beanstalk on turn 2 in this game and we beat them. And we still had, like, however many insects we want off of these. So what, we'll probably get 4 insects on the next turn they play a creature. Yeah, deck is sweet. Let's go to round number 3. Alright, we are live from the Loam gaming, which is one of my favourite sorts of gaming. In a previous life, I was a lands player for quite a while. And in a previous life before that, I was a Delver player. So we've been through a lot of decks in my long history of playing this game. Anyway, what do we got over here? We got Polluted Delta again. Shock Horror. Most played land in the format, presumably. Scrabbling Claws. Target player exiles a card from their graveyard. So we choose what we exile. Interesting. Okay, so I think we want to Mox Diamond, and we're going to pitch, I think it's the Mortuary here, and then do we just Wasteland into Thoughtseize? So we Wasteland here so they can't daze and save their land, and then next turn we loan back. Our opponent might make that a little bit awkward for us. Shoulder's Edict. Right, they have Ottawara. So this could be like a lands adjacent thing. Right, we'll get exile our Thoughtseize. This is very similar to Phyrexian Furnace, which is like a staple in pre-modern, except Phyrexian Furnace always eats the bottom card, whereas we get to choose which card we exile. So in this situation, I'd much rather play against this than the Furnace. Alright, I'm going to lose a Mortuary, I think. A Smallpox. So they can sacrifice this Scrabbling Claws, but then our Loam is just in anyway. So they have to choose what they're going after here. I have another Loam, so I'd rather go after the Loam here. Yes, okay, that looks like what our opponent's going to do. That's okay. Turn 1 Scrabbling Claws is a little bit annoying for us. This might also mean that they have the, what's it called? It's a 3-mana guy that whenever you commit a crime, you look at the top 5 cards and put a land into play tapped from them, I think. And I can't remember what that card's called. It's really, Lookout? Something? Keen Lookout? Something like that. But anyway, that card's really sweet. And that would be a reason to be running Scrabbling Claws, because you can just keep activating it and keep getting your triggers. I have played a deck like that before on the channel, but it was a while back. So we're going to lose the Loam here. Yep, that's fine. If our opponent plays something, we get to Wasteland, Loam back the Wasteland. But it's just going to be like really irritating getting through this. They don't need to tap it to exile cards either. For the sacrifice mode, it's just sacrifice, so you can tap it and sacrifice in the same turn cycle. Marsh Flats. What are we doing with this Marsh Flats? Like, we can just start wastelanding our opponent's stuff. But then if they wasteland... Okay, I'm down to play this game. Let's wasteland the Hedge Maze. They're going to float a mana. And then we're going to move phases. Are they going to exile the... Okay, they're going to play a Snapcaster Mage here. Okay. They can't really target anything of note here. They're getting back a Force of Will. Okay. So this... The alternative cost for this is still 5 mana. So this Snapcaster works differently to some other cards. So Jace, Friend's Prodigy, the backside of that, it lets you cast a card from your graveyard. Flashback is an alternate cost, so you can't play the alternate cost of paying 1 life and discarding a blue card. So this doesn't actually do anything. Would I rather have a Wasteland or this Life from the Loam? I think we're in the Life from the Loam game here, aren't we? I just want this Wasteland back. Like, it is kind of awkward to just give them this free food for their Scrabbling Claws, but we are getting value. You know, we're casting our spells, we're cashing them into things. And then our opponent is kind of meeting our Wastelands head on and stuff. Okay, so we're going to keep this little game that we're playing going, I think. And Urza's Saga. Quite a big fan of that one. I don't think we're in Smallpox Town yet. Right. Let's just keep playing this game. Are you just going to play another Snapcaster to beat down with? Sure. So we're going to need to Smallpox soon just to slow our opponent's roll. So we probably get basic Swamp and then Smallpox and lose the Ghost Quarter. I should take 4 here. Our opponent's got 1 card in hand. So we're going to take that with our Smallpox. Yep, goodbye Wasteland. You blew up a lot of lands. I'll buy you. We'll save that for later. Let's crack this. Let's get the basic Swamp that we want here. Float a mana off of this in case there's a daze coming in our future. I guess we can play in response anyway, but it's just good practice to float the mana. So we'll take half of our opponent's lands, our entire opponent's hand, and half of their creatures. Not bad for 1 spell, and it's going to cost us this Hogaak that we don't really want anyway. I'm hoping that they lose the Wasteland here. That way we can just get this as a Saga going, and that should beat the board. Our opponent's deck's interesting though. Not been seeing a lot of Snapcaster. Like, the Snapcaster Mage have come back a little bit for like the Wizard deck. Please get rid of your Wasteland. They did get rid of the Wasteland. Excellent. We now have some stuff that we might be able to get Hogaak going without the Scrabbling Claws. They should just pop the Scrabbling Claws and try and get some more land though. But next turn we play the Saga, we take 2. The turn after we have a guy that can block and kill this. And then we're in a good position, I would say. I'm not really sure what's in our opponent's deck. Playing Snapcaster and Witherbloom Command suggests that our opponent wants to be playing a long game with a lot of resources. And that's certainly not the game that we're playing right now. So this is not really the zone our opponent wants to be in. Yep, I will exile this Smallpox since we have no way of getting that back. But lands we can get back and Hogaak we can get back. We'll take 2. Okay, Thoughtseize, not so good. Let's just get the Saga running. We need our opponent to brick for 1 turn and then we're okay. Right, Tropical Island. That doesn't do anything. There's no like Uros in their graveyard yet. Sure, what are we going to lose here? Is it the Ghost Quarter or the Marsh Flats? I think it's the Marsh Flats. I'm down to do some horrible crimes with the old Ghost Quarter at some point. I do enjoy the sort of game where your opponent is just completely in the dirt. I used to play lands before we had Thespian Stage, and that was how you won a lot of your games. Hatchery is kind of an interesting one. I'll play it out. We don't have to use it. We don't have to tap it because we have the mana already to do what we need. And I don't want to expose my green source either. Because we have... Do we have any green spells in the main deck? Actually, the Endurance is in the sideboard. Alright, Polluted Delta. Our opponent has got a lot of lands, but not doing very much with them. Are we still attacking here? We are. Let's block this. I'm not going to tap that Hatchery right now. They should... Okay, so they're going to get our... Right, I take the Hogaak here. They should just pop this and draw a card. I think I would have done... Or, well, they do it after our Thoughtseize window. Alright, so let's make a friend. Alright, so they're doing this in response so that we can't Pithing Needle their land. That makes sense. We are the sort of deck that might do that. So now we have something to go with this Hatchery. I might start tapping it. I would like... a Currency Converter. How much is our opponent using their graveyard is the question. I guess they play a Murktide. We have that covered already. So I'm just going to get the Currency Converter here. And we play this land out. And then we can start making rogues. Our opponent might have Orcish Bowmasters, so I want to do this now. I'll discard this Thoughtseize, and I will put it underneath the Currency Converter. Our opponent can sack the Scrabbling Claws to stop it going under the Converter. But that would involve them sacrificing their Scrabbling Claws. So this is a rogue that we've got banked. So we've got 5 damage on board. We can start amping that up a little bit soon. Kishless Skimmer. Alright. Sure, I will exile this Ghost Quarter, I think. Oh no, they're exiling their own stuff. Okay, that's why they're playing this. So they're using this as a draw engine. That makes some sense. So this turn is going to be a Smallpox turn, I believe. A Thoughteize. That's pretty good. What would you like to take? Probably the Smallpox here. Our life total is quite low. Right, but whether they take goes underneath the converter unless they want to pay. Right, I will take this. Okay, so this Bird Scout is potentially scary for us. Boseiju who endures. We can discard this to hit this to stop them from drawing additional cards every turn. Something, isn't it? Alright, we can attack for 3 here. They do get a card off of this anyway. But it is what it is. We can't target our own things, so we can't get hatchery tokens out of it. Also, this will go underneath the currency converter in case we want a treasure, which will pump our construct later on, but I think it's better off just getting the rogues in. So they hit us to 3, we hit them to 5, they hit us to 1, we hit them for lethal. So they should be cracking this. They don't get to draw a card because it's only on your turn. So are they going to go after one of our lands? They are indeed. They're going to go after the one that goes underneath the currency converter. I think that's quite smart. It doesn't go on the currency converter because we don't have it. And yeah, we need our opponent to not necessarily have additional threats or disruption, which I imagine is a decent portion of the deck. This has been an interesting game. Is this going to be a Witherbloom Command? That is back-breaking if that's what they've drawn. Life from Loam. Ottawara, Wasteland, Polluted Delta. That is pretty good and punishes us for not getting the Nihil Spellbomb. Okay. So what do they do here? They could Wasteland our Bayou. That kind of forces us to use our Eumidian Hatchery sometimes, which might be a little bit dangerous because if we use it once, it changes the clock our opponent has. Yeah, they're coming in for 2. Let's make a rogue, please. I'm not going to tap this hatchery for obvious reasons. I'd like to go to attacks. Do I need this land in play? So they bounce this construct. They take... Okay, they've cracked this, so these are now lethal, but they can put whatever they want on top. What do they want? A Witherbloom Command. That does kill us right now. Okay, that's pretty scary. Yeah, no, the Witherbloom Command draining us out is lethal. Yeah, it was a really interesting game. If we'd have got the Nihil Spellbomb instead, we would have been fine, but we didn't know our opponent was doing Kishless Skimmer, Life from the Loam stuff. Okay, maybe we could have inferred that from the Ottawara, but interesting. So, I would like some endurance, please. I don't think we need Shadowspear here. I think it is just the endurance that we want. Pick your poison. They've shown us flyers that I wouldn't mind killing. So, this is an option. Now Spellbomb looks great. Currency Converter looks great. Witherbloom Command, again, making Mox Diamonds look very precarious. Are we just going to take them all out? This is kind of wild, but honestly, getting your Mox Diamond blown up by a Witherbloom Command is, well, it's just a horrible feeling, and I would not recommend it to anyone. So we're going to try and board them out. Like, we still have 28 lands. We are a pretty mana-heavy deck. It means we're not going to be as quick out of the gates, but we're going to have more resources overall, which is probably where we want to be in a matchup like this, where it's going to be a bit of attrition going on. I like the Bowmasters quite a lot. We can't do anything with the Smallpox. Our opponent's going to be pretty Wasteland heavy if they're running Loams and Witherblooms. So our hand is a touch fragile. I already feel like a mulligan with double Hogaak, so I'm going to mulligan again. Or mulligan instead. Okay. Basic Swamp. Currency Converter. Turn 2, Bowmasters. This seems acceptable when we throw back one of the Hogaaks. So it's kind of similar to the first hand. I think the Currency Converter is a really nice addition. So let's go and get this basic Swamp so we can play the game. Okay, so now we are able to take a Thoughtseize from our opponent and still get value from it. We're also able to Smallpox and get some additional value. We can also preserve some stuff in our graveyard for potential graveyard wipes until we want it in the graveyard. We've got a forest being tapped. What is this? Pick your poison. Wowzers trousers. Our opponent's on some interesting stuff in their deck. It looks sweet though. So this means we get the Bowmasters in. We didn't see Bowmasters from our opponent's list. We did see like cantrips and stuff. So I'm just going to play this preemptively. We have another one if they have a Bowmasters. Generally you want to be the second player to play a Bowmasters. But if our opponent isn't playing a Bowmasters, or they're relying on some cantrips, then now is a good spot for these. I would like to find a land next turn so we can get some Saga value going. Alright, we got some basics over there. I wonder if there's any doing with the... Okay, so here is the Bowmasters. I wonder if there's any doing with the snow in their deck or not. Okay, so now we're kind of not doing the Urza Saga thing right now, right? Let's see if we can get some business going with this. It would have to be a force here. Right, so we ping this Bowmaster, and then our Bowmaster grows. And we win... sorry, our Orc Army grows, and we win that little fight. And then next turn, we lose our Saga. And things get a little bit sketchy from there. But our opponent doesn't have blue mana. Alright, so they're going to Wasteland our Saga. What are they going to follow up with, though? We've got some pressure going here. Ghosty Vacuum. Yeah? Very much the battle of weird little one-mana artifacts today. I would very much like to Thoughtseize my opponent. When do I not want to Thoughtseize my opponent, I guess? Snapcaster and Brainstorm. They only have one blue source. Do I care about Snapcaster Pick Your Poison? No. I guess it's the Brainstorm. It does seem weird when they have a Snapcaster they can just get it back, but they currently don't have the mana to do that, which is kind of a big deal. Oh, what am I doing? I shouldn't have attacked her. I should have just made the Hogaak. I forgot that was the 5th card. Oh, that was loose. Okay. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. And now... Actually, no. Yeah, they're just going to take out some stuff from our graveyard. Yeah, we had an opportunity to Hogaak then, and we missed it. And that might end up costing us the game. Alright. 3 mana. I don't know what this card is. Teval's Judgment. Enchant. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you choose a mode that hasn't been taken this turn. Draw a card, create a treasure, get a zombie druid. Never seen this. This must be like a commander thing, maybe? I don't know. Can we put a land into our graveyard, please? Or something into our graveyard? Yeah. We're being hugely punished for our misplay, which is the way that Magic should be, to be honest. Our opponent's deck looks really sweet. But if we'd just got our Hogaak out last turn after we Thoughtseized, because our opponent didn't Ghost Vacuum. Right, taking out a card here. They get a 2-2, don't they? Oh, wait, this is not on any turn, isn't it? Oh, I thought it was just on your turn, like the Kishna Skimmer. Oh, no, this is all falling apart horribly here. My opponent's brew has got me absolutely shafted here. I deserve to lose this game because we didn't play the Hogaak. I think if we play the Hogaak, this game is pretty easy to win. Life from the Loam, get back some stuff. This makes them another zombie. I don't think we can beat our opponent's attrition here. They're just going to have so many things. Alright, they're not even getting a guy. They're just getting a card. It's going to be tough to draw out of this one. We need a green source. Would go a little bit of a ways there because we can get rid of this Judgment card that is absolutely wrecking us. Yeah, I think we're just done here. Yeah, I messed this one up. I think this is on me. Sorry about that, everyone. I would have liked to see more of our opponent's deck because it looked pretty sweet. Alright, on to round 4.
For free, fast and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products and full sets, check out 3-for-1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COW3 for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros.
Alright, let's have a little look at our opener. Okay, it's like turn 1 Bowmasters if we want it. That's kind of interesting. Alright, let's keep this one. We're not really doing a great job at doing Loam stuff. Or even Witherbloom commanding for lands. Like the one time we had it, our opponent had Scrabbling Claws straight away. So it'd be nice to get that sort of grind going. We got Hatchery, so hand is perfect. Right, a Misty to begin with from our opponent. A Hogaak. Let's play the Hatchery. Let's play this Mox Diamond. I'm inclined to get rid of a Bayou. We'll pass. So, a reason to keep the Boseiju is if our opponent is playing like an Omnitail deck, what can happen is they can put in an Omniscience. We can put something that puts a trigger on the stack like a Bowmasters, and then with that trigger on a stack, we can Boseiju away their Omniscience. Prismatic Vista. This is starting to feel quite a bit like Omnitail. Alright, maybe not anymore. We got the white now, so we're not thinking about that anymore. But this looks like I'm going to cast a cantrip whilst holding up. Ugh. Not a lover of that one for us. Alright, I guess we'll just flash this Bowmasters in now. They'll brainstorm a response. There it is. There's not a lot of Esper about, so I don't think holding this to then get some more juice going by killing their Bowmaster if they play one makes the most sense. Because we've seen the Misty Rainforest. So if they are playing multiple colours, it's probably going to be Bant if they're playing anything beyond these two. Because they've got the basic fetches. So their fetch down is probably going to be one that targets the basics that are relevant to their deck. So this could be like a basic Bant control. With things like back to basics in. Which could be a bit of a doozy. Also, not a big lover of this Wasteland in a matchup like that. But when we do find a target with this, it will be very, very good. Because these decks that play around Wasteland, when they do get Wastelanded, have a bad time. Alright, we've got 2 for 1 off of our Bowmaster. I'll take that. I don't know if I want to Smallpox just yet. I feel like we can get some more stuff going here. I'm not going to expose my green source yet. We can't even cast a small patch, actually. We need black, don't we? A Stoneforge Mystic. We have an answer to this. This could be like a Nardu Stoneblade type thing. Okay, so I have pre-war formal wear, so we can't shoot this, which is kind of annoying. I'm going to put a counter on this Hatchery. Not like a Bant sort of deck. Okay. Let's go and get a Bayou here, because I would like to have some green mana when we're all done here. Let's try Smallpox. We can take out the Stoneforge, and maybe this also stops a pre-war formal wear coming down. Why did I tap the Wasteland there? That was not the one I wanted to tap. Oops. So we're going to get our little friends here. Our friends are going to bring a Hogaak with them. So we'll take out the things that definitely don't matter. So that's the Smallpox and the Marsh Flats. And then, okay, I guess we'll leave the Hatchery in. Alright, that was a pretty good turn. We got 11 power in play. Like if they pre-war formal wear and just get this Stoneforge, we just pop it with a Fatal Push and keep moving. We can also blow up things that come out of it. Alright, we've kept this Wasteland. They have a Saga. That's nice for us. Pre-war formal wear. Sure, you get back your Nomads, maybe? Or your Stoneforge. Just a Stoneforge. Sure. So this is like Bant Nardu Blade. But it's under a Yorion package. Okay, I think we're going to Wasteland here first. Do I think they're going to block this Hogaak? I'm okay if they do. I don't think they will block it though. And they just want to get the Cauldron Complete out of their hand. So we know they can't have Force of Vigor blue card, but they could have Daze. So I'm going to play this Boseiju, and this is going to allow us to Fatal Push this little guy. And I believe our opponent is in trouble. This feels like a matchup though. Maybe we can get quite a lot of grinding out of our deck and really put our opponent in the dirt. They need a Source of Plowshares now, and then they also need to follow up with these things. They don't know that we have a lethal burn spell in hand. Alright. That felt pretty good. If they're playing Breakfast combo, then Leyline of the Void is something that can definitely help with that. Grafdigger's Cage is a thing that also helps with that. I don't believe this is a Shadowspear matchup. Pithing Needle has some text. Haywire Mite has some text. Endurance has some text. Pick Your Poison can blow up a Cauldron Complete, as well as taking out Urza's Sagas. So there's a whole bunch of things I like here. But what do I not like? I like the Spellbomb here. Currency Converter is pretty good. The Witherbloom Command is pretty good. Is it the Grist? This is one of the weaker things. I think I prefer the Pick Your Poison here, because this just takes out Urza's Saga, which is kind of a big deal. Maybe we'll trim a Currency Converter, and that gets us one of these, which is probably going to be a Cage to stop their super fast combo if they have that. I think we can just disrupt them with our removal spells, rather than trying to do this, like Leyline in the Void stuff, because Leyline is not a great draw for us. Okay, Hogaak is a little bit sketchy into all the sorts of plowshares they can have, But we have other ways of winning. We just grind with as a side of constructs. And our constructs are probably going to be better than our opponents because we're recurring them. Okay, we'll try this one out. Okay, we've got removal. We've got just the constant grind of the sagas if we can find a green source. I'm going to believe in the heart of the cards here. If we had a Zoran Orb that we could fetch off of this and we could just get our hatcheries going. Maybe that's getting lost in the source. Alright, so we can blow this up if we find the sources we need. Okay, this again could blow up the Shuko if we had the right source. But you do have to take the hit sometimes when you're playing the Eumidian Hatchery. It doesn't always mean that you're going to have all the green sources in your deck. But it's definitely worth playing though. This card is pretty sweet. If they play a guy, we can push it. Otherwise we can just play the Saga game and hold up our interaction. Do I want this forest right now? I could take this out and then also hold up Fatal Push. That seems pretty good actually, doesn't it? Click the wrong green card there. This one. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact of their choice, please. Then we have the Fatal Push to break anything up creature-wise they have here. We can't kill a Nadu with a Fatal Push. We need to be able to get Revolt first. So that is the thing we're trying to dodge here. But getting rid of the Shuko means that if they drew the Nadu, we actually they don't just get to go off straight away. I'm going to tap my Eumidian Hatchery. I would like many guys when the time comes. Okay, so I think this is Urza Saga time. We've got a win condition. We've got a little bit of interaction. If they play stuff out, we can always Witherbloom Command it. If they play out like 2 enablers, we might be able to pick them both up in one go. That would feel pretty good. Like minusing the core and then blowing up the Shuko. That could be very irritating for our opponent to deal with. They're also showing us additional colour here. So they're like 4 colour Nadu, Yorion, Stoneblade. This might just be a splash for casting Cabal Therapies. So we've got the Urza Saga over there. I would like to draw a Wasteland. We could Witherbloom Command looking for a Wasteland next turn. Right, they just put Yorion to hand. Alright, I'm going to continue to tap my hatchery. A Smallpox. Okay. That's something to enjoy later. If we play out this Verdant Catacombs, it gives us the ability to have a Fatal Push with Revolt, which I think is quite important. A little bit worried about this as a Saga. I don't really want my opponent having access to the Shuko. I have to imagine they have more than one Shuko in their deck as well. Alright, let's make a friend. And we should probably get Surveil Land here as well. Try and dig our way towards that. Alright, they're ploughing this. Sure. Try and dig our way towards the Wasteland that we really want here. A Bowmasters. Sure, I think that is an above average draw. So if we make a construct here. So they are playing around Pithing Needle. So on the Grafdigger's Cage or the Nihil Spellbomb. They both kind of work. I think I want the Cage though. Because the Cage stops the Narcomoebas coming out as we go through the pile. When they're milling. And it also stops them Dread Returning and stuff like that and Memory's Journeying. Whereas Nihil Spellbomb is just like a big wipe. So I think it is the Cage. I'll play this Hatchery. We have a choice here. We can hit this construct right now. And just be winning on that front. But that does open us up to our opponent having Nadu combo next turn. But they'll have less creatures to Nadu combo with if we Bowmasters, and we're unlikely to kill the Nadu anyway. So I think we are correct here to Bowmasters away this construct while it's still manageable. This can also mess with our opponent's ability to cantrip next turn. If we had the ability to get Revolt, so maybe we're not supposed to crack for that Surveil Land and just keep up the ability to have a Revolt Fatal Push, so we can do things differently then. We just have to get through one turn, then we can like Smallpox and Witherbloom Command our way through this game. Right, so they are a lot more heavily into black than I originally thought. They've not only got an Underground Seal, they've got Under 6 Sewers and they're fetching for it. Okay, they're milling over a Stoneforge. I would like to see them make a construct here. Okay, they're making mana, that is less good for us. What is the damage? Shuko. We get seeing a Nadu here. Feels like a Nadu. There it is. The annoying little bird itself. Okay, so they get 2 free draws here, and then we can try and wipe all this stuff. Stoneforge Mystic. Okay, so they get another 2 draws. A Tundra. Okay. Don't play a Nomads. Be my preference here, opponent. Prismatic Ending on the Grafdigger's Cage. Okay. They have a Cephalid. They do have the Illusionist as well. Okay, I guess we F6 and just see their deck. So we could have held up stuff to pay through this, but if they have the Nadi, we're in trouble. Maybe not cracking the Verdant Catacombs so that we had the Revolt available to go was the way to go. But we'll see what our opponent puts into their graveyard here, and we can get a little bit of information about not only what their deck looks like, but how they've sideboarded. And then we can have that information for game 3. I've just about got to the end of their milling themselves over now, so nothing particularly interesting going on here. They've still got Dazers in. Makes sense on the play. Okay, yeah, nothing particularly noteworthy here. Are they going to play around a Fairy Macabre? Unlikely. They're just going to turn, and that is the game. So, yeah, they're basically just playing the Euron so they can have some additional cards going. Do I want Force of Vigor to try and stop situations where they have the Shuko? Is it really necessary when we have all of this stuff? Being able to blow up their Sagas is good, but we have 6 land destruction lands. No, I think we are okay with how we sideboarded. It just didn't work out this one time. Haywire Mite is something I'm not opposed to having access to here. Do you want the Mox Diamond for a Haywire Mite? Sure. Because this can go and get an answer to Shuko from our pile, which I think is nice. I don't know if I want the Pithing Needle. We can name like Nomads, but they have too many different ways of comboing off. Possibly. But we're hoping that our removal spells can just do the work for us in that regard. Our deck should be a lot more reliable than our opponents because we are running a 60 card list, so we should be able to do our thing at a better rate. Curious. I will keep this one. I think Bowmasters is pretty solid here, and if our opponent fetches out a basic, then our Ghost Quarter becomes really horrible for our opponent to deal with, and we can do it multiple times. So I think we're looking at Surveil Land for our Verdant Catacombs. It might be a bit tricky getting the black for this Smallpox, but we can always Witherbloom Command and get back our Verdant Catacombs. Hey Brainstorm, you got it. So they're playing around Bowmasters on our turn. Makes sense. I'm still annoyed about that previous round where our opponent made the mistake with the Ghost Vacuum, and we didn't capitalise on that mistake by playing the Hogaak. Alright, we got this Underground Mortuary. Let's have a look. Another black source. Sure, I'll take that. That means you don't have to use our Witherbloom Command to fix our mana. A Verdant Catacombs. I'm going to crack this now so that there's not like a weird window where we crack a fetch, then our opponent brainstorms and they sort of get away with it. They can't combo us this turn. Alright, a Hedge Maze. Sure. So this is going to get rid of one of the cards they put on top. Okay, so they have a Narcomoeba. I will Bowmasters this out of the way in a second. They could have another cantrip here, that's fine. This gives them less pieces to jump out the graveyard when they do their combo. Yep. This is always going to happen here, but we get to take a piece of material out of play. So, that's fine. We're going to see a Daze here. Is it worth a whole Force of Will? It's worth a whole Force of Will. Pitching a Brainstorm. A Grafdigger's Cage. Which of these lands do I want to lose them? Do I care about the least? I think it's probably the forest that goes. And then we play the cage. If they had a Daze, they would have used it then instead of the Force, so I don't think they have a Daze. So let's just Smallpox and take a big bite out of all of our opponent's resources. So I think, like, these two kind of do the same thing, sort of. But this can hit other things. So I'm going to get rid of the Ghost Quarter, and then I'm going to lose the Forest. Alright, Misty Rainforest, Narcomoeba, Hedge Maze. Okay. And Urza's Saga. We can Boseiju that way. A Stoneforge Mystic. Really not a fan of that. We need to somehow draw Life from Loam and Fatal Push this turn. A Cauldron complete. Okay. So, blow up this Urza Saga to stop them making guys. But we're still going to have to deal with this Cauldron complete. How do we deal with that? We have Pick Your Poison. We have Smallpox. Smallpox involves us having to get rid of this first. Yeah, I don't like this very much, but I think this is correct. Take out the Saga now. For our opponent's untapped. Yep, we get Surveil Land. It's feeling pretty awkward from where we're sat right now. And then we'll play out this land. So the other option we had was to fire in the Witherbloom Command first and see if we hit a Wasteland. Which is reasonable as a strategy as well. But if we miss, then they do have the Saga running. But I guess we could then pick up the Saga the following turn. Maybe that's okay. Alright, I'm not going to crack this. Revolt is quite important. Oh, yikes. Another thing. This is going to make Smallpox worse as well. Pick your poison. Hallelujah, we found it. Each opponent sacrifices an artifact of their choice. Get out of here, Cauldron Complete. If the last cards in your hand are Force of Vigor blue card, then you get me. Fair enough. Okay, they did not get me. Oh, actually, I was thinking we could cast this, but if we wait, it says non-creature, non-land permanent. So if they flip this, we can actually kill it. I was just thinking, do I really want to get a land back now? I don't think we should have fetched then. I was indecisive. I was thinking we just want to get a little bit of velocity going. Maybe we hit a life from a Loam. But actually, if we can flip this, get this Tamiyo flipped, we can actually answer it. I don't normally want my opponent to flip their Tamiyo, but this situation would be helpful for us if they did. Not attacking with the Stoneforge. What is that about? Have they got a Batterskull in hand? Or like a pre-war Formalware? Pre-war Formalware doesn't work here though, because of our cage. So I can't imagine it's that. An Orcish Bowmasters. Okay. We might be able to take out this Stoneforge if they crack this clue. Or they might not crack the clue in an attempt to crack 2 clues next turn. Alright, let's get our Bowmasters in. They're brainstorming in response. This is going to flip the Tamiyo. Which is one of the things we wanted to happen. But it is annoying that our opponent's got just all these banger cards. Alright, they've found a Force of Will as well. Alright, opponent. You've certainly got all the things you need there. We're still doing more at end of turn. This is probably just shuffling away the brainstormed cards. And they might have another fetch, another Surveil Land, but no. We've seen them in Tickler's Archive, actually. So they do have another Surveil Land. Alright, well, we have an answer to this Tamiyo. They're probably just putting Yorion in hand here. They have a Nadu. That's a little scary, isn't it? Okay, so we can answer the Tamiyo. That's one of our problems. So, destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent, and then I guess we're just going to mill some cards. We know they got no cards, so we know this is going to work. A Eumidian Hatchery. I don't want the Boseiju. It helps us blow up some problem permanents, potentially. I think that's what we're taking. So if they play a Urza Saga, we can delete that. If they play a Shuko, they get 1 activation of it. And that works out best for us. Obviously, if they put the Yorion in hand and then blink the Yorion, when it targets their guys, then we have a bad time. Because they get to draw 2 cards, and they also get to tutor with Stoneforge. Yep, Yorion in hand. It's tough. Another Saga. We can't keep our opponent off of the Yorion by using this Boseiju. So we just have to kind of suck it up. Okay, so we make a construct that can block the Stoneforge. So we're not dead this turn. But 7 power in the air is a little bit more than I'm prepared for. Yep, in comes the bird. And then they're going to blink all their stuff. And then we're going to be sad. Oh, their things come back. What are they cheering for off of their Stoneforge? Oh wait, no, this doesn't target, right? Exile any number. Okay, yeah, so they didn't actually get to target that. So they didn't get to draw 2 cards. Pre-war Formalware. That doesn't work under Grafdigger's Cage. That's nice for us. But it does just attach and make their guys bigger, which is also a little bit of a problem. A Saga. I can't remember what we have to fetch off of our Saga. Haywire Mite. That can exile, and that gives us 2 life. So that means that we're not dead to the Yorion on its own, but we are dead to the Yorion and the Nadu combined. We don't have the Shadowspear in. Let me just check my sideboard to make sure that's the case. Okay, I guess we I'm making construct here. Creature cards and graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, so we can't even get the Haywire Mite here. Guess we get the Spellbomb. Maybe we're not supposed to make a guy here, actually, and we're just going for the redraw here. I'm pretty sure we're dead, though. Wasteland, that's not going to cut it, is it? Alright, so we're having some problems with our deck. When we're coming up against a bunch of these decks that are built to just generate lots and lots of resources, it's kind of difficult. Like, when your opponent's cards are just, you know, playing to the board, you know, relatively one for one, then your Pox game plan looks pretty good. But when all of your opponent's things come with freebies attached, it's really good. Now, we could just say, yeah, this is a horrible matchup and didn't go for us. But we can also say, we could have played differently. So there was a game where we had the Verdant Catacombs, we fetched for a Surveil land, looking for an answer to their Urza Saga. We could have kept the Surveil, the fetch land, and had the answer to the Nadu in the Revolted Fatal Push. That's a different line we could have taken, and because we already had the Fatal Push, maybe we're supposed to take that line. It does mean that they get a card out of their Nadu, and maybe we don't want them to get any cards at all. Also, that plays around counter magic, because they couldn't have countered our Surveil, but they could have countered the Fatal Push. So that's definitely one point where we could have played things slightly differently that is worth thinking about. Also, early on, my brain was just thinking that, I don't know why I would have thought a Yorion deck could have been a Omnitail build. I played against that once, like ages ago, and I don't think it's a real thing. So at the start, when we were thinking about what decks they could have been, we probably should have adjusted our mind frame slightly because of the Yorion. Alright, on to the final round. We're currently looking at a 1-3 record, so not so great. 2-3 is the best we can hope for. Let's have a crack at it. Alright, into the final round. Seems okay. We don't really do anything on 1, but I can live with that. We've got some good options on turn 2. And we're on the play, so it's not quite as big a deal. Let's get the hatchery, start this going. Wastes. Interesting. So this is probably going to be Eldrazi. Does this mean we need to save our life points, or do we just want to build up the hatchery? I think we're just going to build up the hatchery. I think that's going to be the plan here. Okay, so we're probably just on Bayou into Bowmasters here, and then we have material that we can use for the Grist to minus next turn if we need to kill a creature. That makes a lot of sense to me. At some point, this hatchery is going to turn into a bunch of guys that will be able to block some big boys and maybe gang up on some of them. 3 mana. It's just going to be just a Flesh Raker. Okay. Do they have a follow-up? They do have a follow-up. Do I want to do anything with this Bowmasters right now? I don't think so. So now they've finished doing their turn, we can fire in the Bowmasters. We can take out the spawn token here, but our opponent can crack this so that we don't get a token. But we will be taking mana away from our opponent. Yep, so they've cracked it there. It's the correct play to do for them. So we're trading our 1-1 guy for their mana production. Okay, a second Boseiju. We probably don't need 2 Boseijus, do we? We'll attack with the Bowmasters here. We can trade this for the Lotus Petal and the Flesh Raker. Yeah, they're not biting. That makes sense. Right, so now we're going to just take out the Flesh Raker this way. Obviously, the Flesh Raker can really pop off and do some gross stuff. So we could have done this in a way that left us with the Bowmasters. The thing is, a 1-1 body just isn't very good. So I think just trying to take away as many of our opponent's resources as possible is what we need to do. That is kind of what our deck wants to do all the time anyway. If someone was like, you might be better off pinging them and just leaving the body in so then we can still have a body, I could believe that as well. Now, Eldrazi line break here. Alright, this is bad news. So this is going to swing pretty hard. I believe Eldrazi has the second most online event wins of any deck in Legacy at the moment, which is interesting. That's since the BNR update. So we're going to lose the Grist, or they might go face here. They don't want to waste 6 damage. You're right, yeah, they don't want to waste 6 damage. I can see why they would not want to waste 6 damage. So this is lethal next turn. Witherbloom Command. So we can stack up 2 commands to kill a Flesh Raker and then gain a bit of life. That's probably where we're at here. We'll plus this Grist first in case anything changes. Okay. So we can just get a Bayou here, I think. So this is, we need to -3 and we need to drain some life just so we can stay alive. So we'll minus this. We'll gain some life. Green and black. And now we will do the same again. Target this, target them. Alright, so we put ourselves back up to 10. And our opponent has got, what, 4 damage showing, but any creature they play is going to have haste. But it won't necessarily have trample, because this is the one that has trample. So hopefully we can just chuck this under the bus. And how are we going to get this? I guess we need to draw a Smallpox is what we need to do. Okay, they've got another play to follow up with here. That doesn't strike me as a great news for us. Alright, this is fine. So they can give the Fleshraker haste and force us to chump block with our insect, or they can just put it all on the trampler, which means that we can get Hogaak out this turn. So where is this coming in? If this comes at Grist, then we don't get to... Right, we're just going to take the damage here. So the plan here is we can either minus the Grist and kill this Fleshraker, or we can plus the Grist and play a Hogaak. A Fatal Push is slightly... No, this Fatal Push is good, right? Because we can blow this up with the Boseiju. So, what do we need to do here? We need to get Revolt somehow. That might be a little trickier. Right. So, Boseiju can't target our own land. It's destroyed target artifact, enchantment, on a non-basic land an opponent controls. Alright, so we'll pay some mana here. Things we can't get back go first. And like, creatures are relevant for Grist, but it's not the big deal here. So we can blow this up for 1 mana. And then we need to find a way of losing our permanent. So Hogaak can soak quite a lot of damage here. If they kill our Hogaak, we get to kill their Linebreaker. It then heralds the end. This is going to put our opponent down a bit lower life-wise. Okay, so this also gives us a Fatal Push target that might mess with our opponent's combat maths and could let us backdoor a win here. Yeah, we're not beating this Reality Smasher. We also got the ping from the Fleshraker to finish us off. Alright, this feels like a matchup we should have a decent game into, though, because we have the ability to blow up our opponent's resources in a pretty big way. How are we going to... This is probably a Shadowspear matchup, so we can stabilize. We do not need Nihil Spellbomb. We don't have any additional removal, but we could board in things like the Force of Vigor to blow up the Chalice. We could board in the Haywire Mite, which can blow up the Chalice. We can get off the Urza Saga. This can also exile a copy of the One Ring, so that's pretty interesting. Damping Sphere shuts down their mana production quite nicely, so I think I'm interested in that to sort of slow our opponent's roll a little bit. Do I need Thoughtseizes here? Not really. They seem like a bit of a liability. So we can take this Haywire Mite. It can answer some stuff. It can also gain us life. Pick your poison. And we've got 2 more things to fit in here, right? So we've taken 5 cards out. So let's have the Haywire Mite. And I just don't think the Pick your poison is going to be that useful. I think I'd rather just have a body in an endurance. Like, we could board in the Pithing Needle, but the thing we mainly want to name would be Wasteland. I don't think naming our Vugin's where I need to be here. Okay, I'll just have an endurance as like a body that is reasonably well sized in what they're doing. Maybe even one of the Bowmasters could be an endurance as well. Our opponent might be boarding in Leylines and stuff. Okay, this is the sort of mana denial package that we need to beat a matchup like this. Okay, I think we begin with the Verdant Catacombs. We can go and get Surveil Land, or we can Fatal Push something. We also have our Fatal Push turned on, so if they like ramp out a Linebreaker this turn, we can kill it. And Eldrazi Temple is just going to be that guy. That guy is not that exciting. A lot of lists aren't even running this guy. Right, I think this is time to go and get a Bayou. We'll kill this, and then we'll Wasteland our opponent and try and keep them off of any action. So we could play the Damping Sphere here. This turns this into 1 mana instead of 2. If we Wasteland it, it turns it into 0 mana though. And 0 is definitely better for us. So I think this is just Wasteland. The Eldrazi Temple is the correct move. Our opponent doesn't often have plays for 2 mana. So we can just keep them off of what they want to be doing. We should be alright. Another Eldrazi Temple. We've got another one of these guys. They do have another one of those guys. Okay. I think this is the turn we play the Ghost Quarter and the Damping Sphere. I like the Witherbloom Command, but not just yet. So let's play this Damping Sphere. So this takes our opponent deck back down to 1 mana again. So Thoughtseize is very much off the cards. And then we can just start wastelanding our opponent. And at some point we'll find a way of dealing with this. Ugin. Sure. So they can still make their things cost less, and that works for them. Yep. That's a little bit awkward. So wasteland in here doesn't feel the most useful. We could just try and block with an endurance. I think we're on damage control here. So we're going to jump in this endurance and try and stick this in front of the Flesh Raker, I think. Cavern of Souls, Eldrazi. So they can play a 4-drop now if they want to. It's a Line Breaker. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we're going to be trading our endurance for a Line Breaker here. And we take a little bit of spillover damage as well. Wow, I hate that. Oh wait, no, we don't even get to trade into this, do we? Because this is going to be a 4-4 thanks to their little 2-drop guy. Yuck. So we kill this. Oh, I don't think they've thought this through because the Damping Sphere means they can't cast stuff as easily. Because this makes each spell you cast cost 1 more. So if they're trying to dismember, they don't have the ability to do that right now. So we take this out and we take 11. Or we take this out and we take 10. But both of these cause us problems. Which one are we taking out? I think it's the Flesh Raker. Like, we might be able to handle bodies. Like, if we can't find a way of dealing with this, we're just going to die anyway, so... Ah, dear. We are under the gun in a big way here. So we can Witherbloom Command, get back a land. That's not very exciting. We can Bowmasters, ping down at the Hell's the End a little bit. Maybe block here, double block there. Maybe that works okay. Do we have to do this as well? I think we do. Alright, going to 4 is kind of annoying, but we're going to be going up. So this ends up netting us life in when it washes out. So this is... We can drain life and minus a creature. So we're going to shoot this and drain some life. Green and black. Then we can cast the Orcish Bowmasters on our opponent's turn. So they're just going to sacrifice this. They probably use this to then dismember our endurance. Oh wait, no, this doesn't even kill it, does it? And now we can play the Bowmasters and kill it there. But if we play the Bowmasters, they sacrifice this. Is it more important for us to be able to take this out or to stop them having a spawn? Actually, we can't do that now because of the Damping Sphere, right? This, at the Herald's End, actually being good is very frustrating. Alright, they're going to sack it anyway. That's fine. It's not fine, but it's the world that we are currently living in. If they have any creature, we die. It's a land. Let's hope they just have 2 more in hand. Alright, maybe that is the case here. So this is going to be attacking for 6. That is an awkward amount. Alright, we have a play that means we're not necessarily dead. So we can block 3 things on this. Or sorry, block 2 things on this. And then we would take 4, 5, 6. So that kill us. So we have to stop this, I think. So we can block 1 here. And 1 here. And then we take 5 trample damage and go to 1. Yikes. Okay. What can we draw to help us out here? Smallpox no longer looking so good. A Wasteland. So we can Wasteland some stuff, but we are just dead to this. None of these things that we can get back help. We are dead. Alright, a pretty underwhelming end to the league there. And that takes us to a 1 and 4 finish. So this deck list I've played today, I have seen it take a few 5-0s out of the league. And I believe DECKLIST, they have been playing this. At least one of their trophies is from this Pox deck. But we had a bit of a rough time. We did make a little misstep by not capitalizing on our opponent's mistake. We could have played a Hogaak in one of the rounds and taken it to a game 3, which is a bit frustrating. Although, I think they might have had the ability to Snapcaster Edict. No, the Edict wouldn't work because you had the Bowmasters, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about the deck. So, like, I like a lot of what this deck is trying to do. And I think, honestly, it's fine. And the record we got today is not representative of what I would expect a deck like this to go like. Now, this deck is going to have some awkward matchups. So, if, let's say, our opponent is a deck that is very good at gaining a lot of resources, then that can certainly go over the top of our resource denial, because our resource denial is not, like, extreme. We're not using, like, Hymn to Turax and stuff as well. We've just got, like, Smallpox and the little Wasteland package. So we're just kind of trying to grind a little bit. Occasionally we strip out a bunch of resources here. But if that is a thing that our opponent can recover from, like with Nadu triggers or whatever, or playing this their own Loam strategy, then that is a real problem for us, especially if we didn't know they were a Loam strategy when we were sideboarding. So that definitely is a little bit awkward. Also, decks that we need to pressure early, we can struggle with because we don't have a lot of early pressure. Now, there are hands where Hogaak comes down super early, like, I don't know what the earliest we can play a Hogaak in this deck is. Probably, like, turn 2, if we're doing, like, Life from the Loam stuff with Mox Diamond on turn 1. So, yeah, like, an early Hogaak to pressure, like, a Storm-style deck backed up by, like, a little bit of hand disruption is probably pretty good. But if we don't have the Hogaak, our pressure is very, very slow. And you may have noticed that Legacy is quite a fast format these days. Like, the pivotal turn is probably, like, turn 2 now in the format. You have to, like, have something important happening on turn 2 in order to sort of keep up with where things are right now. Unless you have, like, a turn 3 play that just wins you the game, etc. But, like, trying to build this up over the course of, like, 4 or 5 turns and then popping it and doing some stuff is a bit difficult. And we didn't always have the ability to pop the hatchery as much as I would like. I have seen some lists that are running the Zuran Orb, so you can sacrifice this whenever you need to, and it also gets you back some of the life that you spent into the hatchery, and that's quite an interesting piece of technology that I wouldn't mind trying. Zuran Orb is a card that I love a great deal, more than I should, given its quality. But yeah, like, this deck is just kind of fair. It kind of feels a little bit like we're playing Bug Beans, because they have, like, this nice little Life from the Loam package and stuff. And, you know, they're running the Witherbloom Commands and the Orcish Bowmasters and the Thoughtseizes and the Fail Pushes. But instead of doing, like, all the good stuff that they do, we're sort of indexing ourselves into having, like, Hogaak, Smallpox, and then, like, this little Urza Saga package. And given the nature of the format right now, I don't think that is better than playing, like, a bunch of good blue spells. I think if you want to really maximize this, we probably have to lean in harder and really sort of be a graveyard deck. Like, we were definitely having games where casting Hogaak wasn't actually that easy. We weren't milling ourselves over that much. Now, maybe part of this is because we just didn't draw Loams very often today. So you could play, like, a list with Entomb, which gives you the ability to go and find your Life from the Loam, as well as finding a few interesting silver bullets that you might want in your graveyard. And once you have Life from the Loam going, Entomb just becomes like a crop rotation style tutor where you just get wherever you want and then you can bring it back with a Life from the Loam, and that's quite nice too. It also allows you to have things like a Dark Blast in your 75, which is a card that, when it's good, that card absolutely annihilates matchups, and I'm a big fan of it. But, you know, you could also have Revelation, Ancient Grudge style stuff if you wanted it. Just find out your Entomb package. There's a lot of options available for a deck like this. I think this list is better than the one we played the other day, although I think we did better with the other list. However, you know, things just didn't come together quite how we would have wanted them today. And, you know, that's magic. That sometimes happens. The matchups weren't ideal. Like, combo matchups that can just kind of ignore what we're doing is a bit awkward. If we were playing a bill with, like, Hymn to Turax and stuff, then I'd feel quite good into the Storm matchup. But when we're just like, okay, we make our opponent discard 1 card from Smallpox and maybe lose a land, and then we can make our opponent discard 1 card from Thoughtseize, and maybe we'll have a little bit of graveyard hate, and that's about the most we have across our whole 75, that becomes really awkward in the matchup, and I'm not sure that a deck that applies this little pressure can handle those sorts of matchups. But we played against some really sweet and cool stuff today. I enjoyed the Keen-Eye Curator Graveyard deck. That was really sweet. Maybe I'll see if the person who's playing it can reach out and drop me the list. That did look pretty cool. Alright, we're done for today, so please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye.
If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo decks guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.